I know it's been a long day and I'm the last session of the day. So who else vibe coded till now? And who's kind of really, been frustrated with that experience? Who's had a good experience? Frustrated? Raise hands. There we go. Who's had a good experience? Okay, so kind of 50-50. And I think that kind of speaks where the market is. So a little bit about Emergent. Has any of you heard of Emergent before this? Okay, a few hands. That's good. So we launched very recently. We actually launched towards the end of May. Yeah, and we primarily focus, on the vision that I'm just going to talk about after this, and I'll kind of step into that in a second. So I'll kind of talk about what Emergent wants to focus on. What we think is the future of how the world is going to be, and what part of that world we want to kind of help grow. And then I'll kind of get into what we think is the essentials of a platform that actually should be good at vibe coding, right? And then I'll kind of get into some examples. I'll kind of walk you guys through some examples. We'll keep it as conversational as possible. Ask me the questions. Since a few hands raised in terms of like frustration, I'd be happy to kind of help you through how you can think about it, how you need to think about it differently from traditional coding. So the vision is actually very simple. If you actually went to pre-industrial era, there were very, very few employees in the world, right? The whole concept of employees actually new. A lot of people were self-employed in the 1800s, like before the industrial era. And what we're kind of seeing happen as technology is evolving, right? The industrial era was the first generation of technology evolution. And as that progresses, we're basically seeing creators come back into the economy, right? This example here is about the camera, being professional photography and all the way to the phones now, where people are actually able to kind of create great quality photographs, and then companies created on top of that. Many people's career created on top of that. And we feel very, very strongly that coding is at the same juncture. We are probably not more than a year or two away from the same kind of democratization of coding. We don't feel that it is like the whole, if you think about like the era before Steve Jobs introduced graphic user interface, right? Like people would have to be experts to be able to use a computer. Today, all of us use computers in various forms. And coding is kind of similar to that, right? Like there is really no need. When I want to start a business, when I want to kind of start a software business, why do I have to depend on a technical co-founder to actually find and solve for a market need, right? And that's a big obstacle for a lot of people. That is obstacles within companies. I'm sure that if you guys are actually in companies, you're running operations, and you have to depend on your technology teams, you're always not going to get the help you need. So the vision is actually very simple. We feel the world is going to go back, to where the builders, will become the developers, right? So the product managers of the past, the business people of the past, these individuals now can kind of unshackle themselves from the need for engineering teams and engineering co-founders, and at least get started. So we're not saying that immediately, you can kind of go and build large-scale SaaS businesses out of these solutions today. Okay, but what we're saying is you should be able to kind of build out solutions to prove the value, solutions to get traction, and then, kind of do those initial steps and then get to the production solutions after that. So these are the three personas that at least Emergent kind of, focuses on today. So we basically have like small business owners. I'll kind of walk through like examples of real people that we saw across the world who are running their businesses today. They want to build apps for making their business more efficient, both inside and outside. So these are customer-facing apps they're building. These are employee-facing apps that they're building. And these are people without development experience. So one is, for example, a jewelry owner in Amsterdam. The other person is a biotech engineer from San Francisco, California, right? So we got all these people who are just coming up with like use cases that they deeply understand, and then they want to be able to solve that more rigorously. So the second is like solo entrepreneurs. This is like in this room, how many aspiring entrepreneurs do we have? People who are actually trying to build a startup? Okay, awesome. I mean, that's a great crowd. So you guys probably already know that you don't really need a working software to get started, right? Like in the product management world, we would always say like, okay, we don't need that. But I think that world is also slightly shifting. Expectations are higher in today's world. People are expecting a working software. Without that, it's difficult to kind of get in and have real conversations with people. And when I was a founder before this, I was actually struggling for the same reason. And I had to depend on a technical co-founder. Today, I would actually use one of these vibe coding platforms. Okay, it takes a little bit of grit to kind of get to the other end of it, but I would actually completely use a vibe coding platform to get started. And the last segment was personal apps, but our primary focus are on the first two. Now, what we see in the market today, if we look at the entire vibe coding space, again, all spaces are very large, and there can be many people successful doing many different kind of things. So one thing that works today, that we know works is a prototype, right? It's like a front-end clickable prototype. If you guys have used Figma in the past, it's kind of like a better Figma, right? So it really works. It looks pretty. It looks beautiful. It's a fantastic communication tool. So I think the era where people would use PPTs like this to make presentations would go away, right? And people would actually come in with like a clickable prototype and then communicate the vision of what they really want to communicate and build. And there are companies that are doing that really well, and there are companies that are going after that market really well, right? And Emergent is not going after that market. So that's what I wanted to clarify. So the market that Emergent is going after is where we want to help users build real applications. Okay, and these are very divergent paths. There are very, very different trade-offs in the kind of product that you want to build in order to be able to say, okay, I want to replace the engineering team to be able to come up with a scalable code base that actually works, or I want to build a prototype, which is very front-end heavy, right? And so we are going after the users who need like real applications and not just the prototype. So in order to kind of do that, we took a very, very different path. So instead of actually, and today you'll find like a lot of vibe coding apps being able to kind of do landing pages, being able to do like front-end mockups very easily. We started with a testing agent right at the beginning. Okay, without actually building the coding part of it, we were actually doing the testing for the coding. And after we started the testing, we actually then went to compete on the SWE bench, which is the software engineering benchmark globally for coding. And we beat Claude Code. At that time, it was Anthropic, right? And a bunch of players in the market. We ranked number 1. We consistently ranked number 2, 3. We are the only vibe coding player who's actually competed in that market. And the reason that we did that is because we actually wanted to focus on making the backend much more rigorous, right? So we actually started coding backend first. We did not really focus on front end. Our designs never looked as pretty and beautiful. And we actually instead focused on creating like good quality Python code, good quality MongoDB database, and so on and so forth. That was the beginning of the journey. And the second kind of choice that we made was, so AI agents is a fairly big deal today. But when we actually started building this, AI agents were a very high risk choice, right? And at that point in time, a lot of the competitors, if you actually look at them, there is very low agency in their AI products. And what that basically means is it's a very clearly described set of steps written as a workflow that agent should follow. And it's mostly templates that are brought together for front-end application. while we actually kind of focused on building pretty long-running agents, right? And very high autonomy agents. So, and we have specialized agents for various roles in engineering behind the screens. And these specialized agents actually work together. Like you basically have literally the development agent compete with the testing agent to kind of figure out like who has got it right. And when they try to deploy it, you got a deployment agent that's actually coming in to see if everything's right. If things are wrong, it goes back. The main agent actually fixes it. So it kind of goes in its own loop. And if you try out, if anybody has tried out Emergent, you'll know, like you'll actually see, hey, I found this error. And then it kind of goes on its own. It fixes the error, it comes back, it tests again. Typically what a development team does. And then it actually releases the software. So the other difference that we made was we wanted to focus on non-technical builders a lot. So in the world of coding, again, you can go after the developers. There are 24, 27 million developers in the world, depending on where you look at it. And that's a great market. It's a very high value market. But we don't think that's where the revolution's going to happen. The revolution's going to happen when non-technical builders are enabled to build, right? And that has been the consistent focus that we've had. And the product choices that we made in order to do that is we don't believe that if you have one platform to build, another platform that you need to go and test what you built in, and then a third platform where you have to figure out how to deploy the solution and make it available to the world, non-technical users would just get lost, right? Like it's actually, a deployment is a very, very difficult problem if you have a proper full stack application. So if you're just having a front-end landing page and you want to deploy it in one click, Vercel, like all of those solutions work. It's very easy. You can do it in any of these prototyping softwares. But if you actually build a proper full stack application, deployment is a very, very difficult challenge. So one of the things that we did was we made sure that the entire journey of software development is actually built into the same platform. And the reason we did it is because we wanted AI agents to be able to kind of have visibility to every log, every error that is happening across these different areas so that it can self-correct. As an example, say if a very popular prototyping software has a third-party database tool, right, that they integrate to make it their backend. The second you kind of increase the complexity of that solution and you try to make the agent fix that, the agent is not able to see the logs of that third-party solution, right? The agent doesn't have the visibility to go in and actually understand what's going wrong. So these are two different platforms, and these solutions can never really scale to produce production quality software at a later point. So you can actually grow really fast today by serving easier use cases, but you really will not be able to kind of scale into production quality software at a later point in time. Yeah, so these are some examples. I'm happy to kind of show you guys more examples if we have the time. But this was Emma, and she was basically building a multi-voice agent. So this is like a storybook kind of reader where you can actually choose the character you want, and you can change the voice of the person who is kind of reading that story. Okay, now one of the features that we have in this platform, so how many of you guys are non-technical here? Like, fantastic. Okay, so if you have gone to any of these platforms and tried to integrate AI, like a ChatGPT, an OpenAI API, okay, do you guys know what an API key is? Like to go and fetch it from there and then come and give it back? Fantastic. Now, a lot of our users actually don't, right? So we have lost a lot of users just because, the agent's like, hey, can you give me your API key? And our users are basically like, we don't even know what that means, right? So we created something called the universal key, which we've talked about here, where we have actually integrated like a lot of these services on behalf of the user at the backend. And all the user has to say is, so we ask the user like, hey, do you want to bring your own key or do you want Emergent to do it for you, right? And if the user says, hey, I want, and mostly they have no idea what they're saying when they say, make Emergent do it for you, we just do it. And that makes it very, very simple to build AI apps on Emergent today. But AI integrations are only the beginning of it. We are actually looking at integrating like hundreds of third-party services at the back end so that we can make it very, very easy to kind of do that on the platform. So this is another user. Her name's Kate. She was CEO of Podcast Network. She actually created a blockchain solution. Now, these things are not easy to create. The reason why, I showed this example here is it would have been difficult for us in the beginning of Emergent's journey, and she would have created this in the first 3 weeks of us launching the platform. It definitely wasn't an easy task, and she is not an engineer, but right, she kind of like figured it out in terms of how to get it done and integrate like a blockchain solution to be able to authenticate videos in this particular software, and it works beautifully well. Now, the other thing that Emergent has behind the screens is we have long-term memory, right? So if one user manages to integrate something, every user the next time tries the same thing out, it would automatically user and then get it done, right? So if you try integrating Stripe, for example, etc., like these are some of the top integrations like OpenAI, Stripe, all of this works very seamlessly, and it's not coded in. We sometimes don't know what our users are integrating. Once somebody integrates it, everybody gets access to it. And guys, like this is as of September 8th, but we have crossed 2 million signups at this point in time. So thank you. Doing really fast and having a lot of fun. Thanks. So this is kind of like a prompt that I gave, right? And I've written like a business goal. I've written some features and what the target users are. And what I've done here by doing that, now we're all very lazy when we prompt. Okay, none of us actually want to kind of do a lot of the hard work. So we give these very single shot prompts. Ideally, you don't want to give a chat GPT this question and say, give me the prompt. Okay, it actually performs worse than if we type it. So it's actually better if we put a little bit of effort and help the agent understand the context of what is being built, right? The other thing that I've seen a lot of users do, and wish I could teach them to do this, is I've seen users have the sunk cost fallacy, right? Sometimes we develop something and we don't really have an idea what we want when we start the prompt, right? And it's only after maybe 2 or 3 times of prompting, we start understanding what is it that we really want. And by the time we get to like a version of the product we like, we have actually changed our idea probably 5 or 6 times. Okay, so one of the things we do when we develop it, like product management team at Emergent, right? Like we actually give the same prompt 3 times to the agent, like 3 different times. And it gives 3 different outputs. It potentially gives 3 different errors, right? And we also very, very quickly come back and redo what we're doing from scratch, right? And we do the prototyping phase in this way, and it costs us a lot lesser to do this. Like literally in like 10 or 15 credits, I'd be able to do multiple examples and multiple times with very low cost, all giving me enough output to give me clarity. And only at that point, I decide, okay, now I know what I want. I'm going to actually build a serious application. I understand the prompt I need to give. And then we kind of get to serious app building. But questions on the floor, please.
So the first question is, like in the morning when Vishal was talking about Rocket, and in the fireside chat, when we asked like, what do you think if the codes which are generated through the vibe coding, are they really kind of, production ready, or there are still POCs or prototypes, as you say? So how do you think like Emergent, works in this aspect?
Great question, actually. So I'll kind of repeat the question. So the question was, is the code that's being generated through vibe coding platforms today prototype kind of quality or scale quality code? Okay, and if you actually go at the back end of this code today, right, you would actually not be super impressed with the scalability of a lot of this code. Okay, now I'll tell you what Emergent is doing in order to kind of solve some of these problems. So the first thing is, in the Emergent app, there is a feature called fork. Okay, I don't know if you guys have tested it or tried it out. This is actually very unique in the market. You wouldn't really find the same feature in any vibe coding platform. Okay, and what fork basically does is it kind of resets the agent's corruption, right? And it takes this code and then gives it to, you can think of it like giving it to another agent now, right? And this agent actually relooks at this code and then builds on top of that code with the context from before. Okay, and we had to put a lot of effort in this to kind of make sure the context is not lost. But one of the problems with agents is as the code quality, the code number of lines of code increases, the agents actually deteriorate significantly, right? And that is what results in poor quality code being generated. One of the reasons why poor quality code is generated. And fork was our answer to that part of the solution. But it's also central to what we're planning in future, right? So in the next few weeks, you would actually see a feature that we release where, so we noticed that a lot of users are, the best word to use is meandering, right? We're going like this in terms of what is the solution we want. You go to an engineer and you say, hey, I want this. And then next day you say, no, that's not what I meant. I want something else. They're not going to be very happy, right? But we do that with these vibe coding platforms. Now, what that does is that actually spoils the quality of the code. It makes the code non-scalable. There is also a lot of dead code inside these things, right? So what we're doing is we're refactoring this code, right? So we give the users the option that when they fork, they actually get to clean this code up and make it more scalable, right? So there is a lot of work that we're doing continuously in the backend to make sure these code becomes scalable. This is our focus and our priorities for our company. The short answer is it is not very difficult to make it scalable. We just have to understand why it ends up not being scalable. And a lot of that answer lies in how the user is using it, right? So if you're able to kind of get the user to also learn and at the same time solve without the user having to learn, those are some of the challenges we're working on now.
One follow-up question. So actually, so there are two aspects of the coding. One are the builders, as you said, who does not have an experience in the coding, and the other arena is the set of developers, the companies who are actually developing or building things, right? So whenever we are developing anything through these platforms, especially like if we talk about Emergent, is it possible that it gives the full code base access with everything which we can, like scale up or refactor or make it more production ready?
Yes, the answer is yes. So in Emergent today, you will be able to click on the VS Code button at the top right, and you have access to your entire code. You can go in and change the code right there, or you can export it. You also can export it to GitHub. You can import things from GitHub. So it's a very open platform. I mean, that is absolutely necessary.
Developers like
yeah, these are not locked. And Emergent also doesn't use any proprietary libraries, so we make sure that this code is a code that is available for everybody to use without depending on Emergent.
Like cells. Thank you.
Huge congratulations to what your team is building, because I'm here today exclusively because of Emergent, because I'm a business owner of interiors and construction, and I have tried every other vibe coding app. And after that, I landed up in Emergent one day, and it has actually helped me deploy an app which I could personalize all the interior project management solutions for my company. So it's a great job that you're doing.
Thank you.
But still, I'm seeing the little problems for people like me, being like a civil engineer who has no idea about code. So there are some technical problems, like, even after deployment, there are some features which are actually deployed, which keeps missing. And I'd also like to understand what is the scale of app that can be built out of Emergent, because I actually want to see a full-scale enterprise management system, maybe the client onboarding session, the selections happening through the app. There are a lot of ideas. So I'd like to understand what is the scale of the app that can be built through Emergent.
So let me answer the first question. So we're now 4 months old and working day and night to make sure the platform's improving. It will take time for like an amazing experience, right? But one of the things that we're going to do very, very quickly, and this you should see within the next few weeks, is for users who have deployed, like yourself, who have a working app, and you have some users who are coming onto that working app, we want to support you guys more. So we will be releasing a set of features, functionalities, and potentially a team dedicated to helping users at that point. So it is a priority. I mean, that is the vision that we're trying to get to. So many of our users who are already at that point, we want to make sure they are able to help. I'll give you my contact number. Like, let's just keep in touch. Okay. The second to answer the second question in terms of scalability, right? Scalability is always a function of it's a function of two things: the capability of these platforms, right? But it is also a function of what is the approach you're taking to kind of build these slightly more expansive solutions. Say, for example, for a B2B customer, I built two pretty robust products on Emergent, right? And what I did there was not to make it one solution. I made it two different solutions and just connected the backend. So I created an API for the first one, an API for the second one, and we just made it talk to each other, right? And when you do things like that, like the scalability of what you can do improves. Now, some of these practices, we'll also have to figure out how we can teach a lot more people.
Easy for a non-technical person to do that, right? Different as in, what's the backend?
So I am a non-technical user, and ideally, yes, you can, but I do have some exposure, right? Like, it really depends on the level of exposure that you have. But the aim that we have to cater to is to be able to abstract all of that exposure out, where we don't need it. So in your case, I'll definitely love to catch up and learn more. Yeah, thank you.
I tested most coding platforms like Lovable, Replit. India took some ideas to come up with their own. There's Rocket, there's Emergent. And I think you touched upon it, but is there a specific way that you recommend we prompt vibe coding platforms to get a better result rather than just pasting or ChatGPT, written prompt, which like my case, does not work really well even on Lovable. I've tried that with Emergent. Like you said, the response was little, that wasn't at par. So are there any frameworks that you recommend or any sort of strategies that we should keep in mind when we are prompting any vibe coding platform, not just Emergent?
Understood. Hey, so you mentioned Lovable there, right? And let me put it this way. If you want a dashboard, if you were trying to build a dashboard, you should be able to build it on Lovable, right? If you're building a slightly more complex solution where you need the backend and you need the backend to be robust, you need a lot of logic in the Python code, like that's not things you can necessarily do somewhere else. Now, the best practice in vibe coding is two things. So one, it is to give the agent as much context of the problem as possible instead of the solution, right? Like you can work with it to figure out the solution, but it'll help a lot if it understands the problem you're trying to solve. Okay, that's one. Second, today most of these platforms are fairly a hit and miss, right? Like when you do your single shot prompt, and this is hit and miss because the users are also not experts, right, at being able to prompt, and the model probably does not understand the context in which it needs to be built. The best way to do this is, and this is what I do 3 at a time, right? Like same problem statement, and I would just give the same prompt in 3 different windows. So in Emergent, you can basically open up 3 tabs. I just do it all 3 times, and one of those times, it may be successful or maybe not, right? And if there is an error, right, I'll learn from that error. And the next time I prompt, I actually make sure that even if it's an output that I don't want, right, like I'll make sure my prompt improves, right? So my initial journey through this is I differentiate prototyping stage from building the production app. Okay, and this is what we do in software engineering all the time. Like when we're building products, we don't do prototype together with production. We don't build production on top of prototype. If you're able to kind of differentiate these two, you should be able to build a very, very high quality app, because the 3rd or the 4th time that you're trying this, you know what you want. You know what this agent is good at doing, what it's not good at doing, what you need to tell it not to do. And then you will be able to build it.
Just one follow-up. Do you think prompt optimizers help? Like, ChatGPT has their prompt optimizer. There's Prompt Genie, there's Prompt Perfect, where you can just put your prompt and they optimize it. Does that help?
No, I think human text works better.